Welcome to the 11th installment of Introducing. Today we'll be introducing Xerxia, but before we do, I do have a quick announcement. I'm sure some of you have already seen this, that I will be co-streaming the VCT Masters Copenhagen games, all of them, and we'll be taking a more kind of serious side, analytical approach to those games, where I'll have all the stats of, like, what agents do they run, what maps are they good at, all of that kind of stuff. We'll be taking a look at that, and, obviously when the games are going on, kind of diving in more seriously, focusing on the games, like, oh, they should be doing this, oh, I wonder what they're saying in this timeout, all of that kind of stuff. We will have a lot of fun, I'm sure, as well. But yes, back to Xerxia, where they are a team, obviously, from APAC, Thailand specifically, and they finished as the APAC runners-up. Now, I do want to give a bit of context to that clip at the start of the video as well, when they were in a 2v5, down 12-11 against Bleed. That was to be eliminated from the APAC playoffs. Very early on into the playoff bracket as well. And they managed to win that 2v5, send it to overtime, win in overtime, and then they continued to kind of, claw and scrap their way through to make it as the APAC runners-up. It was quite the journey that they've been on to make it here to Copenhagen, but they did manage to make it, and they did obviously make it to Masters 1 as well, where they exited in the group stage. Obviously, they did beat Optic, the eventual winners in that group stage, and then almost beat Team Liquid as well to make it out of the group stage, but lost in overtime in that game, and then obviously lost to Optic in the rematch. So my expectation for them this time, I put playoffs ? Because they're in, I think, a more favorable group this time than perhaps they were before. Their first game is against FPX, who might have subs, which, if they do have subs, FPX, that is a very winnable game for Xerxia. And then they have DRX and Northeption are the other teams. They might struggle, I think, a bit with DRX, but Northeption, I think, is a team that they probably could potentially win against as well. So playoffs, I think, will probably be their expectation. They'll want to get out of group stage and then obviously see who they draw from there and see how they can go. Their style is quite a patient one. It's kind of different to a lot of APAC teams. You think APAC, you think Paper Rex, you think Crazy, a lot of teams like that. Actually, Xerxia play a lot more kind of normally. If you're from like EMEA or NA, Xerxia probably play more like those teams than they do a lot of the other APAC teams. A lot more patient kind of stuff, a lot of lurks, and a lot of scary clutches. And we'll see that in some, you've already seen that in some of the clips at the start of the video, but we'll see it a bit more. The bottom I've put, people be sleeping or not. Now, this is something that I'm a bit undecided myself, because I've seen a lot of people saying that Xerxia, oh, they aren't that good, they won't do too much this tournament. And initially I was like, I don't know about that. They've got experience, they've got some very good players, they've proven that they, could beat a team like Optic as well at an international event. So, people be sleeping. But then, you watch them actually play some games and you watch them, how they did struggle through the APAC qualifiers. And it does make you think, maybe they aren't maybe even as good as they were coming into Iceland. I don't know. I'm still a bit undecided of where to really rank Xerxia, to be honest. When it comes to their members, we got Foxy, who's the IGL, who plays a lot of initiators, as you can see. You got Scary, who is their controller player, and I mean this when I say this. He is their best player. He's also one of the best players in the world. And I think there is more pressure on him to perform if this team is going to do well than in any individual player for any other team. Forget Ye on Optic or Durka on Fnatic or anything like that. I think that if Scary doesn't perform, Xerxia won't do well. But if Scary turns up, they will do very well. He is an insanely good player. Insanely good player. And he can compete with, honestly, the very best players in the world, no doubt in my mind. And a lot of pressure will be put on his shoulders, because if he doesn't perform, then the team probably won't perform, even though he's playing controllers. And I know you think, well, that doesn't really make sense. Isn't it normally the Jet Chamber player like Surf here at the bottom? Shouldn't he be the one? And Surf is a very good player in his own right, but Scary, I think, is the difference maker for this team. You've got Cruz, who's kind of the, more experienced do-it-all kind of player. That's, he's kind of more of like a team support player. And Sushi Boys plays a weird kind of agent. He plays mostly Sentinels, but then also when Surf is playing Chamber, he will go and play the Duelist for the team if they want one as well. When it comes to taking a look at some of the clips, we'll take a look at the game they played against Team Secret, which was to qualify for the tournament to make it to the second place for APAC, or at least second place for APAC, and we start with this round on Ascent here, round number 8, and we see straight away Surf goes pushing there and dies to Borkum. Generally, the team isn't, you know, too aggressive. Surf is kind of the most aggressive player, obviously playing a lot of Jet and Chamber, you might expect that. The rest of the team isn't nearly as aggressive as he is, perhaps, but they end up in this 4v5, and obviously that's a difficult situation. You just saw the jiggle peek there coming out from Foxy, seeing if they're there. He sent a Prowler out as well. It gets shot, and they start to come in, right, do Team Secret. They start to create some pressure. Astral Wall comes out from Scary, and they try and reposition and see what they can do. But the thing is, Team Secret are going to do really well here. They manage to find a kill. Really nice Astral Suck there. Cruz does manage to get one back, but we're in a 4v2, right? So 4v2, you're still not expecting much. But this is something that Xerxia just seemed to be very good at in winning these clutches, right? Cruz finds that kill on Borkum, and then Scary, again, just... this man cannot be beat in clutches. He is insanely good. If he is still alive, Xerxia still have a very good chance of winning a round, no matter how many people you have alive. He has some kind of cursed spell on the game, where when he's put in these situations, he just does insanely well. And you're going to see that right now as well. This is why the camera's focusing on him, because it knows that, you know, he's going to do well. Cruz pops his ult, but is actually going to die here, and so we end up with Scary in a 2v1, but it's Scary. So he wins it without even breaking a sweat. Just like that, right? It just seems like, I don't know what it is. And you might think that this is like, oh, that's not a repeatable thing that you can do across multiple games. But for him, it is. Like, I would say that for almost anyone else. But for whatever reason, Scary just seems to be able to completely defy the laws of logic and just continually win 1v2s. You know, if he's in a 2v4, 2v3, it just always happens where he just seems to win these at an absurdly high rate. Sticking on this map, we're going to take a look at round 13, which is their attacking pistol side, and generally they don't tend to do too many crazy things, too many crazy ideas, but this is one of them. A pretty cool idea overall, as you'll see. So we've got 3 players out here in B main. We send out early Prowler, we get early pressure, we force the Chamber to TP away, and then Surf is going to updraft and dash into the smoke right here, right? And so you would think, oh, this is going to be a B play, right? You've seen multiple players there. You think, oh, it's going to be a B play. You see the rotates start to come in from the side of Team Secret, but the spike actually was here all along because this is going to be an A play, right? So what's going to happen is Surf is going to come back like this, and you see that they start to come pressuring like this, right? Really, really interesting, weird idea, and you can see that Team Secret were completely taken off guard by it. I saw Ascend do a similar thing, you might remember, against Fnatic, where Scene had a shorty in that position. But Dubstep actually finds the first kill in mid, but then runs into Surf. Again, he's still thinking, I mean, they still, at this point, still think it's a B play. You can see that they've rotated over, right? And we end up in this 4v4. They see Borkum here deep in towards mid, and they're going to catch him off here. Again, not really... He seems confused about exactly what's going on, where they're exactly going, but it is a fast A play. This was always the plan. They get in onto the site, and they're going to get the spike down here, and they ultimately are going to manage to win this round. Really cool, kind of unique, interesting, different idea, isn't it? But they managed to make it work for them, and you could see definitely that Team Secret were confused, and from here, obviously, in a 4v3 on the post plant, they are just going to manage to... make it good enough for them, as they will win this round. But this kind of... It's something that I would say, you know, you don't see too much from Xerxia overall. They don't do too many crazy things, but you see Sushi Boys gets that kill. They're gonna manage to get 2 people on the Chamber, and they find the last one as well and win the round. But now let's come to the decider in this game, Icebox, and we'll come to round 4, and we'll just see sometimes they just have a lot of patience, like a lot of patience, and you'll see it in this round right here, because we start off with the early updraft dash to see if anyone is watching towards B. They do see that Wits was on this angle. They drone early to see if there's anything else towards there. But now you're going to see they're just going to wait, right? They have extreme patience. They destroy the chamber trap that they saw was in that little cubby there, and now they just wait. And I just want you to watch how long that they are just going to sit here for, and it really does confuse them. This is a really nice round overall from Xerxia. It does go a little hairy at one point, but overall I thought this was a really cool round. But look at this. They just have 3 people watching, right? There's someone on this box just waiting for that jump peek. They know it's going to come, and so they all just sit there. And then Surf does the same thing, and they just sit here, right? They've just, if we take a look at the map, you know, they are just sitting here. They have one person on spawn just watching the flank, and they just sit here, and they know that Wiz here is going to eventually want to see what is there again, right? You can't just know exactly nothing. The recon dart comes out, it doesn't see anything, so Wits maybe thinks he's a bit safe. Surf manages to get the first kill just from them waiting and doing nothing. And then guess what happens? they continue to do nothing. Look, 30 seconds left. A lot of teams would be panicking right now, right? Like, oh, we've got the first kill, let's just go. There's no time. They come up with a much better idea overall, I think, which is Foxy just takes a look at what's on A, see if anyone's close, and then he's just going to ping a dart towards A. Looks like he's clearing out this, and you see the rotates start to come in from Team Secret, and then they make their move, right? Then they actually start to make their move back towards here. Now, they do have to shoot a Killjoy Nano Swarm, which just kind of give the game away maybe a bit earlier than they wanted to. And their Spike Carrier actually does die, but they are still going to manage to get it down. Surf does really well here to smoke himself off, get that. Scary does really well to support him as well. He does end up dying there, but we end up in this 2v2 after Surf dies as well. But they're in such odd positions here. Foxy's managed to actually walk away all the way around the map, right? And so he's in this very weird position right there. And so at this point, when it was in this 2v1, it was pretty much unlosable. They knew where Dubstep was as well. And yeah, you see, I think, kind of the patience there that they can sometimes show, right? Where there was no panic. It seems like when the pressure gets a bit higher, they just play a lot better for some reason. I don't really know why that is, but you see even this, right? This really nice recon dart into the jet smoke manages to get them that last kill as well. However, I do definitely have some criticism for Xerxia, and most of it comes on their defensive side, where sometimes their defensive like setups or whatever completely seem to break down. And it happened here on Ascent in round 9, and it happened a lot in the first game. If you go back and watch the Haven match from this one, Team Secret destroyed Xerxia, just going A pretty much every single round, and Xerxia just had no idea what to do. And sometimes it can look like this, where actually Team Secret are on a save this round, right? They don't even have a lot of weapons coming into this round, and it starts off pretty normally for them, right? They just dart mid, they start to sneak up towards mid. There's nothing too crazy going on. Actually, Xerxia here have a lean towards A, but you're going to see that the alarm bot gets destroyed early by a shock dart here in mid, and then they just seemingly just completely have no idea. They get very worried about this area because, you know, there isn't really too much eyes on it. The alarm bot gets destroyed. You start to see that they start to rotate. They have pushed A main as well, so they know that A main is clear, right? And so they get very worried that this is where all of Team Secret are, so they completely rotate across. But actually, 3 members of Team Secret are here towards short instead. They're droning this, and I don't know really what's going on here, right? You do have this push from A from Surf, who does manage to get the first kill there onto the chamber, but Dubstep's able to turn around and actually win the Jet Knives duel there. We end up in this 4v4, but the bigger problem is this. The bigger problem is what's going on over here, where you've just got like 3 players have just walked up here, right? And there's just no resistance. There's no eyes on it at all. They have absolutely no idea. You see Scary's just gone actually running past them there. They wait for the second player. They get a free kill. They know that Scary's up there, and they end up in this terrible situation where Scary now is surrounded, right? Like he has to worry about this, he has to even worry about this, and he has to worry about the window as well. He's in a terrible spot all of a sudden, and everything just broke down for them, right? And you've got just Borkum here in spawn, right? And Jeremy gets that kill. Borkum gets this one here. They do manage to trade it out, but all of a sudden we're in a 3v1 where these players can be anywhere. They get the spike down. It just all fell apart, and there were quite a few rounds, particularly on Haven, as I mentioned, where this happened, right? Where even against a save here, they just kind of lost all plan of what was going on. They just see like just a tiny bit of information of a couple people, you know, being in mid. They seem to just panic and just and everything kind of fell apart. And this happened a few too many times for me to really feel comfortable about it. When it comes to their map pool, actually it was kind of weird because so many of their games were played on Ascent, Haven, and Icebox. It was very, very strange. I think my big concern perhaps for Xerxia as well is that they don't seem to have like a map where they are truly dominant at, right? Like on both sides, they're very, very strong and they always win that map. They don't really have that, as you can see by this. Maybe Ascent would be the closest that they have, but even that isn't, you know, super convincing. And obviously as the competition level gets higher, you know, there are quite, most teams are pretty good at Ascent. A lot of teams like playing Ascent. So, you know, you have to be really good at Ascent to dominate it at an international level. And so I'm not quite sure that they'll be able to do that. And then you look at the other maps and there isn't, again, any map where you're like, wow, look at this. I mean, their bind defense side is pretty good, but this is only two matches, right? So you can't take too much away from it. So perhaps this as well is a pretty big concern that they don't seem to have that map where I can go, okay, they can win this map against any team at this tournament. That just isn't quite there for them, I think. When it comes to the agents that they like, we have another Astra over Omen team. There's been quite a few of them at this tournament, and also Xerxia are one of those for sure, and Scary's Astra is, well, very, very strong indeed. And they also pick Viper a normal amount of time. They are out on Chamber. I think this is the first team that has been somewhat out on Chamber. We've seen other teams that have had, slightly less pick rate than the overall average across VCT on Chamber. There's been some teams that are a bit below, but Xerxia, I think, are the first team that are strongly below. And you can see that a lot of that is going to Killjoy. Now, I do think that that is something of a bit of a agent compatibility. They don't play Chamber on Icebox, they don't play Chamber on Bind, they don't play him on Ascent, on Haven even, a lot of maps where, sure, teams might not pick him on every single one of those maps, but they pick him on, a good handful of those maps, but not for Xerxia, right? There's a lot of maps where they aren't picking him, and I think it is to do with a bit of a comfort thing, where Surf, I think, is a bit more comfortable on Jet than he is on Chamber, and, he's the only one that plays Chamber in the team, so you end up with a situation where if Surf thinks that he'll do better with Jet on a map than he will Chamber, they'll play Killjoy with Sushi Boys instead, and that's why you have a lot of Killjoy and a lot less Chamber than perhaps you expect. With Sage as well, they're picking a normal time. They did pick Yoru a couple times, although, more recently they did go away from that. And as you can see, yeah, Jet is the kind of the big winner from the Chamber pick rate. It actually kind of weirdly kind of looks like the old sort of meta, right? You've got a lot of Astra, you've got a lot of Jet, you've got a lot of Sova, as you can see in the bottom. You don't have much Chamber. Kind of looks like almost the Reykjavik meta that they're sort of still what perhaps in. No Neon, only a bit of Rays, right? And then the Initiators, to be fair, they pick the Initiators about average, aside from Sova, which you can see that they are still big in on Sova, which honestly I don't think is a mistake. I still think Sova is really good, so I don't have a problem with that, but the Chamber thing is quite interesting. When it comes to their pistol and eco rounds, they aren't amazing. They aren't, like one of the best teams. Of course, most of the teams that come to this tournament you would expect would be pretty good at these, right? So they're kind of in like the average range, I would say, for the teams that are actually coming to Copenhagen. They aren't one of the best at any of these, but overall, it's still fine. And so that was Xerxia, a team that I think, still could surprise. I do still think they have the potential. They have the experience of playing at an international level as well. So they do have some things going for them for sure. My big point will be this man here on the right needs to perform if they are going to make a deep run. I think there is a lot of pressure on Scary. Even if he doesn't really know there is, I think there is a lot of pressure on Scary to perform if Xerxia are going to do well, because he really is their star player, and I think if he can really perform and, play at his very best, then Xerxia could really surprise quite a few teams, I think. But if he has some, weaker games, then I do think that they could be in trouble as well.